The following is an exclusive presentation of the LSU Sports Radio Network. Welcome in to the Brian Kelly Press Conference, delivered by ASAP, the official mobile ordering partner of LSU Athletics. Download the ASAP app today. Coming up, head coach Brian Kelly discusses the week ahead for LSU Fighting Tiger football. But first, from inside the Capital One LSU Sports Radio Network studios, here are former Tiger Gordy Rush and the voice of your Fighting Tigers, Chris Blair.
There are certain nights that you will never forget, and for millions of LSU fans across the globe, this past Saturday night in Death Valley, well, it's going to be one of those. Welcome into the Brian Kelly Press Conference, delivered by ASAP.com, along with Gordy Rush here in the studio. Coming up at 12 noon, we'll hand it off to head coach Brian Kelly, who, man, what a night, Gordy. I really don't even know where to start. You know, I mean, you have those certain games that you're a part of that you're blessed and lucky enough to be a part of, and for a regular season game, to me, 7 years in, I mean, that's the most incredible atmosphere I have ever been in. Now, winning championships at all of that, a regular season game, this thing was unbelievable.
The setup of it, that LSU was a double-digit dog to Alabama, and everybody knew that LSU was playing better, but there was hope in this game that LSU had a chance. That was, hey, do we have a chance? Had more than a chance is, again, the coaching, what Brian Kelly has done with this team, and these players believing in what this coaching staff has put in. It's been fun to watch it gel.
You know, talking to Coach Kelly last week, listening to him on Monday, and then having a chance to visit with him on Thursday, you know, everybody kept asking him about how do you handle Bryce Young. In fact, I asked Coach Thursday night, I said, all right, we know Alabama, we know Nick Saban, we know the history. How do you describe this year's Alabama team? He said 2 words, Bryce Young. So you knew there was a concentration on the reigning Heisman Trophy winner. And he talked about, hey, you've got to corral him. You can't just let him run wild. You can't let him go sideline to sideline. You got to bring pressure. You got to disrupt him, but you can't just let him loose. Now, to me, the opening drive for Alabama, after LSU punts the football back to him, they go right down the field. And suddenly I think all of us there in Tiger Stadium, everybody watching, sees the opening of the last 4 games where LSU had given up an opening drive touchdown. And then there's the corral inside the red zone. He gets near the 5, has to pull up because LSU brings it. I thought initially he was going to go for the end zone, but he pulls up, tries the little flip. Derek Bernard Converse with the interception. And, you know, looking back on it now, it was kind of the telltale sign that this could be different on this given game.
No, absolutely. And I remember that play. Young got forward, and there were 3 LSU defenders that all stepped up, both linebackers and a safety, and they froze. And that was, you're exactly right. That was an example of what he was going to see all night. Hard rush, but they were going to contain him. They were going to break down as if they were playing man-to-man basketball and force him to throw the football, and he threw behind the receiver, and Converse was able to make an interception. The game plan was fantastic, but the execution of the game plan was even better.
You know, I finally made it home early Sunday morning.
Yes, we did.
Like many Tiger fans did who took in the game. And one of the thoughts I that went through my head is that, you know, again, what a great game. I don't know. I haven't been here long enough to say that's the best Saturday night in Death Valley, top 5, top 10. I would defer to others who have a lot more history than I do. But what I loved about the game and why I think it captivated the college football world Saturday night was that it was a defensive battle. If you love defensive football, that first half was all about you. And then in the second half, we got to see both teams use their offensive weapons. As I mentioned, Bryce Young with the scramble and the touchdown pass, but then LSU's offense, again, that offensive line, dare I say, started to wear down the Alabama front. LSU able to run the football, and you called for it during the broadcast. You said, we got to be able to run the ball, and in the second half, especially late, they were able to do so.
LSU ran for 185 yards against Alabama with 2 true freshman offensive linemen, 2 second-year players, and a center that's in his first year of starting Chris, we've been in Alabama games. We didn't cross the 50, or those numbers were in the 20s. That Leonard Fournette wasn't able to run the football. And look, I think this is, again, a testimony to this offense, and they've evolved in their identity with this great job of using designed runs and the zone read and RPOs to open up some running lanes and force defenses to back up. And it's really, really hard to defend this LSU offense. And when you can say that after an Alabama team struggles with this LSU's offense, is on the right track.
This is a great stat. We were talking about the ability to do what LSU did on Saturday night, which hasn't come often against Alabama, certainly Nick Saban Alabama teams. And we talked about the underdog role that LSU played at home.
Right.
Our buddy Todd Polich just sent me, according to what he's found since the early 1990s, it's the fourth win as an underdog of 13.5 or more. You got the Alabama game this year, Florida in 21, Florida in 97, and Bama in 93. So, that's a job well done by Coach Kelly.
No doubt. And, I'll go even a little bit deeper. I think that as the season's gone on, this fan base and I think this coaching staff and Coach Kelly both warmed up to each other, start to understand each other. And you and I have talked about it. Look, Coach Kelly's here to win football games, right? And that's where the focus is. He runs his program like a business. But you heard the comments on our post-game show. You heard them on TV, after the game. It is real, the relationship. And for him to basically come to tears or be teary-eyed and say, look, we've been welcomed here so much, and to be able to return this for these people, and we know how much it means to them, you could tell very, very much real.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've talked about it all year, Gordy, when people ask me on certain interviews, what's it like there around the program? Is it a fit? And all that other nonsense. I'm like, all of that you heard came from people outside the state, certainly outside of Baton Rouge. I had the pleasure this morning to be on SEC this morning with Chris Dorian and Peter Burns, and I said, they asked me what the evolution, the progression of Coach Kelly. I said, I haven't seen any. I mean, truthfully, he's done this 31 years. He's closing in on 300 wins. What I hear him talking about every day is what he was talking about in January. And he kept saying, we do these things for a reason, and eventually the results will come. And here we are, 9 games into the season, and LSU in a position to win the SEC West. And frankly, nobody in the country outside of those guys in that building.
That's right.
That's the only one that matters, frankly. Believe that.
And they believe in the process, but you talk about the SEC. I don't even know that there's been that discussion. It's about the next game,
yes,
and that game being Arkansas. And he does such a wonderful job of keeping the focus. And Chris, we've talked about on my post game interview, those moments after the game, and there was 30 seconds it was real, and a high five, and this and that. And then he looks at me and he's like, "Oh, I know it's now time. We're going to record this thing because I got 4 minutes to get this thing done because he's got TV next, and then he's got recruits, and that's the way that he manages time." But at least I can tell those interviews are as real as they've ever been, and I enjoy being around him.
No, it's great. I told you Saturday night I got a chance to listen to you and him following the game, and I mean it's just great because here's what I love about him. And real quick, we'll continue talking about the game. He's one of the few coaches that if he gets a question, he doesn't have a canned answer. I mean, you can watch him later today at noon. If he gets a very good question that's deep, he will take a moment, and then he will really give you that answer, the best of his ability, the way he sees it. And for the media, not to get out in the weeds, but, I mean, that is super refreshing. Real quick, we talked about the defensive game plan and the execution. Offense, made plays, Mason Taylor, what I don't know what else you can do to describe the play of this young man and the trust his staff has in him to say, hey, look, in a go-to moment, in the fourth quarter, we need a touchdown to get back on top. Let's dial his number. And then to win the game in the first session of overtime, you go, hey, let's run this one. They haven't seen it, and let's go to Mason Taylor. But by the way, Mason Taylor, freshman of the week in the SEC earlier today. Harold Perkins Jr., which was, I said on the broadcast, Nick Saban and Bill O'Brien, they're going to have Harold Perkins Jr. in their nightmares for the next couple of days, if not weeks. Defensive player of the week. And then, of course, Jaden Daniels. I mean, gutsy. Offensive player of the week in the SEC, well-deserved.
All of them well-deserved. And let's give, let's talk about Harold Perkins Jr., who we were wondering how they were going to get B.J. Ojulari and Harold Perkins Jr., who both play the outside linebacker, the jack position. How does he get them on the field? And he got him on the field by putting him in the nickelback position in place of Jay Ward. And Jay Ward's a heck of a football player. But what that did in that alignment, you come to the line of scrimmage and you have Harold Perkins Jr. on one side of the formation and then B.J. Ojulari on the other side of the formation. You can't slide the protection both ways. I mean, that is really, really nasty and tough to block. And then furthermore, Perkins was the guy on 3rd and long. They moved him in to spy Bryce Young, and he was incredible in that role.
An incredible night at Tiger Stadium, 32-31 overtime. LSU gets the win. Again, moved their record to 7-2. More importantly, 5-1, and currently sitting atop the SEC West. But I'm sure Coach Kelly, if he was here, Gordy, he would tell us that was basically 2 days ago. We got to move forward. So that's all the celebrating we're going to do from last weekend.
Sounds good.
And now we're going to set our focus on the matchup on the road in Fayetteville, where it's going to be a little chilly on Saturday morning when LSU gets together with Arkansas. We'll continue with more up at noon. We'll have Coach Brian Kelly. It's the Brian Kelly press conference delivered by ASAP.
Albertsons is making shopping and saving easier than ever. Check out Albertsons For You in our mobile app, where you can shop for groceries and save weekly with digital coupons all in one place. With Albertsons For You, you can earn rewards points every time you shop and redeem them for free groceries. Brand new Albertsons For You members receive $5 off their next $25 purchase just for signing up. Download the Albertsons app or go to albertsons.com to sign up. Albertsons, fresh food, local flavors.
Support your LSU Tigers with Hancock Whitney, the official bank of LSU athletics. From game day to the offseason, Hancock Whitney LSU credit and debit cards are a big win for any Tiger fan. Want to get your paws on these cards? Well, apply online or visit HancockWhitney.com/LSU. Hancock Whitney Bank, member FDIC. All accounts subject to credit approval. Terms and conditions may apply.
He's got a seam. He's down the near side hash.
Tiger fans, if you've ever wanted to listen to the LSU Sports Radio Network while watching your Fighting Tigers on TV, now you can, and it's easy to do.
Just pause the TV. Use the LSU Sports mobile app to stream the audio on your smartphone or tablet. Connect to a smart speaker, then wait for the audio to catch up to the point your TV is paused. Push play, and you are all set.
Watch the Tigers and listen with the LSU Sports Radio Network and the LSU Sports mobile app.
15, 10, 5, touchdown! Tigers!
In the SEC, we sweat the small stuff. The attention to tradition. The preparation for competition. The smallest things can have the biggest impact on this field and a whole host of other fields. To shine among the brightest stars, you have to sweat the small stuff. Because here, it just means more.
Coach Kelly is just moments away from previewing the week for the Fighting Tigers. This is the Brian Kelly Press Conference, delivered by ASAP, the official mobile ordering partner of LSU Athletics. Once again, here are Gordy and Chris.
That's right. Coach Brian Kelly going to join us at 12 noon from the Lawton Room. He'll talk about getting ready for another big game in the SEC. This one on the road. Tigers head to Fayetteville just after 11 a.m. Saturday. Going to be an early start. Razorbacks and Tigers. Arkansas 5-4 on the year, 2-3 in SEC play. And Gordy, tough one up there in Fayetteville this past Saturday. Non-conference homecoming. And Hugh Freeze returns to the SEC, if just for a couple of hours, and really got after the Razorbacks early, up 21-0. The Hogs would eventually battle back, kind of got their footing defensively in the second half, made it a game. 2-point conversion goes awry. They come up short 21-19. And this was a team coming into the year, much like another team in the SEC over in Texas, that was highly touted. This was supposed to be a big step forward. Unfortunately for both, up to this point, it hasn't been. But I always think about this game as, again, whether or not it's a rivalry. I know what is it, the boot? We're battling for the boot Saturday? Okay.
Lovely trophy.
Yeah. But I think Arkansas gets up for this just because I think they get more up for this maybe than LSU, but I'm sure Coach Kelly's going to address the fact we got to go out and win the game. But it's never easy going up there.
It's never easy going up there, and let's look at it. Arkansas is 5-4 in the season. As you mentioned, they just lost to Liberty. This is a game that's going to be at 11 o'clock in the morning. We know LSU doesn't like to play at 11 o'clock in the morning. It's going to be a high of 44 as it stands right now in Fayetteville. That might as well be below zero for people from Louisiana, right? And you've got that going on. And now all of a sudden there's all these rumors coming out that KJ Jefferson, who had a concussion or concussion-type syndromes after the BYU game and had his shoulder hurt against Texas A&M, he may be questionable this week. He didn't practice at all last week. He did play against Liberty. And so you have all these things that may – negatives or things that aren't popular things for LSU football, and you don't want to let your guard down in this situation because Sam Pittman and Arkansas play a physical brand of football, and you got to be at your best to win up there. But this is one of these trap sort of spots, or after a big emotional win against Alabama, you got to be ready to play.
Yeah, because Ole Miss and Alabama are going to play in the 2:30 game later that day, and of course, some things that can affect LSU will be in that matchup, but it doesn't matter if you don't go out and win this game. And I'm sure if Coach Kelly's asked about it during the press conference in regards to KJ Jefferson, they're going to assume he's playing. And if he's playing, albeit 80%, whatever percentage he's at, he is a playmaker. What's interesting is Liberty, I think, really went after him, even though, as you said, he didn't practice, he did play, but they had 14 tackles for loss and 4 sacks against Arkansas's offensive line. So we'll wait and see whether or not he's playing or Malik Hornsby gets most of the snaps. But either way, I think LSU's got to go up there, handling the cold, being prepared for that, and just keeping their eyes on where they need to be. Because if they take care of business, things are in the Tigers' favor.
No, absolutely. And we know how good KJ Jefferson is. Last year, I mean, he was Superman here in Tiger Stadium and brought Arkansas from behind to beat LSU in a game that LSU should have won, let's be frank. And Jefferson in this game, when you look at it, he was sacked 4 times against Liberty. That really jumps out at me, Chris. 14 times they had tackles for losses in this game. I mean, Liberty is not known for their stellar defense.
Nor is Hugh Freeze.
Right,
so,
Hugh
yeah.
Freeze is running tempo on offense. So, Arkansas has had a lot of injuries. They've had a lot of bad luck this year, but they're 5-4. Sam Pittman is a quality coach. Barry Odom, the defensive coordinator. Quality coach Kendall Briles, their OC. We know how good he is. This is a good staff now that are going to try and right the ship. They've got LSU at home, Ole Miss at home, and then they go play Missouri on Black Friday. They want to get to a bowl game and continue the successful turnaround that Pittman has brought to Fayetteville.
Yeah, one of the things that does stand out to me, and you hear it all the time, it's an old adage, defense travels. Well, this time Arkansas is at home, and there's one thing about their defense. Now, they've given up big plays. They gave up 2 huge runs to Alabama, 72 and 76 yards in the game where Alabama pulled away late. But that one was on the line for a while in that contest. But they're a physical defense. I mean, regardless of the outcome, they're one of those teams that you're going to know you played them the next morning.
Fundamentally sound, and that's Odom was that way at Missouri. He's had a good run. He was at Memphis and had some really good defensive teams. So he's really well thought of in the industry, and I think he's a Broyles Award finalist one of those years, if not winning it. So really, like I said, really respected. Doesn't necessarily bring a whole lot of pressures, but they are fundamentally sound. It's going to be fun for me to watch down on the field to see the way that Odom tries to prepare for this new look LSU offense with Daniels in some of these designed runs.
We've seen so many times this year LSU's defense against dual threat quarterbacks. It seems like a broken record. We come in here every Monday and we go, hey, this is who we're playing this week. When you look at KJ Jefferson, again, assuming he's 100%, he's going to play, what's different about defending him versus Bryce Young or name all the other dual-threat quarterbacks we've seen?
Yeah, so Bryce Young did not really look to run. He looks to maneuver and buy time and use his quickness and throw the football. Now, Jefferson's certainly capable of that. Their great receiver was at Berks last year. He's moved on to the NFL. They're not quite as talented in the receiving corps as they've been, but he reminds me a little bit of Richardson, the quarterback from Florida. He will run the football. He is a big-body guy. Maybe doesn't have the top speed that Richardson has, but certainly fast enough and elusive to make some things happen. He's a better thrower of the football than Richardson in Florida. So again, you're right with that. Ashford from Auburn, You had Jackson Dart, I believe, from Ole Miss. We've seen Richardson now from Florida, Bryce Young, and even Travis, the fine quarterback from Florida State. So LSU has had nothing but dual-threat quarterbacks most of the year.
Yeah, except for Will Rogers. That may be the
That's
one
right,
exception.
yeah.
Will Rogers may be the one exception. And the difference from K.J. Jefferson, again, when you watch him, when he's 100%, they use the power running game of the quarterback. This isn't like elusive. He's going to run right at you.
Absolutely. No, and that's what he did. And that's why the sacks, his size is he's a solid human being back there. He looks like a tight end. And I remember last year LSU got after him and just couldn't get him to the ground, and how many times he shook defenders off and was able to throw the football down the field. That was really the difference last year in that football game.
Coming up in just a few moments, we'll head to the Lawton Room. Coach Brian Kelly will be walking through the door and headed to the podium in just a few moments. But, Gordy, we already touched on it, and maybe we're complaining because we got to be there at 11 a.m. in Fayetteville, and it's going to be a little chilly. But we've heard a lot when you go to the Swamp and when you go to these venues in the SEC, you got to prepare for the noise and the atmosphere. That's easy to do, easy to replicate. Not so much preparing for colder weather in the morning.
Yeah, and you're familiar with Fayetteville. I love Fayetteville. You love Fayetteville. The stadium is up on a hill, and it is windy. I mean, the wind whips. So you got a high of 44. That means it'll be in the 30s. It's a tough place to play.
All right, looking forward to it. We'll see you there on Saturday. Let's go to the Lawton Room and head coach Brian Kelly.
Afternoon. So a couple things I want to get out of the way. First of all, we had some players of the week. Jaden Daniels, back-to-back. Obviously, we had the off week, but back-to-back SEC Offensive Player of the Week. And then we had Freshman of the Week, Mason Taylor. Pretty good selection there, I would say. And then Defensive Player Harold Perkins. So congratulations to those guys based upon their play. Just a great atmosphere in Tiger Stadium. I think our fans were, obviously a great motivating factor to creating, one of those environments that, you all talk about, but, you want to be able to be part of it. And I think, our players fed off of that. And certainly we had talked about it Thursday that, when we were in the stadium that, they're going to be out there, but your performance will dictate the kind of involvement that our crowd has, and it's going to require play in and play out a sustained effort. And I think that sustained effort by our football team created that sustained atmosphere in our stadium. It wasn't an up and down kind of involvement. It was every single play. Our crowd was active and involved, and I think it had a lot to do with the kind of play that our players were involved in, and that was a consistency that was really good to see. So, really good win. Our guys got 24 hours to enjoy it, and now our focus is on another SEC opponent on the road. Arkansas, it's the Golden Boot, another rivalry trophy. Of course, they hold the trophy from last year's 16-13 win at Tiger Stadium. And, obviously playing a team that has a very prolific offense. And in terms of players, it starts with their quarterback. I think it's the fifth time now we've seen a big physical quarterback. K.J. Jefferson, 6'3", 240. He's got 17 passing touchdowns, 6 rushing touchdowns. He's going to be a handful. Another guy that we've got to be able to control what he does and get him on the ground. Sanders, Raheem, the running back, probably the biggest back that we'll see. 6'2", 227, leads the SEC in rushing. He's got over 1,000 yards. So that 1-2 combination with arguably the best center in all of college football in Stromberg, a very good scheme. Accomplished SEC wide receivers. This is a really good offense that we're going to have to slow down. And Sam Pittman, I have a great deal of respect for him. A very good football coach. He'll have his football team ready to go. Drew Sanders on defense leads the SEC in sacks with 7.5 sacks. really good football player, and they do a lot of really good things with him. He plays inside, but they move him to an outside position where he can come off the edge. We'll have to be able to account for him. Got a couple former LSU players in their starting defense, Landon Jackson, Dwight McLaughlin, good football players that obviously are playing well for them. And their special teams is really good. They do a lot of different things that we'll have to be alert for, be on top of, and make sure that we do a really good job. We're trending better there. We're going to have to continue to do a really good job. We've got 11 a.m. kickoff. All those things, we're used to it. We've played it early, but we've got to obviously be able to focus on our next opponent, which I'm certain we'll be able to do that with the kind of quality SEC opponent we have in Arkansas. So with that, we'll open it up to questions.
Brian, in the middle by the cameras. Yeah. Was Saturday night the biggest one of your career?
The biggest one of my career is going to be when we win a national championship. And so I'm focused on one thing when I came down here, and that's to win championships. That's one game. It was an exciting win, but I don't put it in the category of the biggest. I think I've had teams that have achieved great things, and I think this team achieved a great victory because of where we were in January and what we've become. And so maybe for me, probably as satisfying as a win for a group of guys that have committed themselves to a process and in that time have achieved a lot.
Coach, when Mason Smith went down on that first defensive series of the year, you talked about DT depth being something you'd have to monitor. What's your view of how Wingo and Jaquelin Roy have played this year as kind of a couple unsung heroes there in the middle?
Yeah, obviously, I think that, anytime you lose a stalwart like Mason, there's cause for concern. But I think what we've done really well is mix up the front. We've played some 3 down to take the pressure off of losing a player of that caliber. And by doing so, have been able to rotate that defensive tackle position with 3 down and 4 down. And by doing so, obviously, you're playing with one nose. And I think that's really helped us a lot. So the loss was great, but I think we've managed it by being smart and tactical defensively. And those 2 guys have been outstanding.
Coach in the middle right here. How impressed were you with your offensive line just throughout the game having to adjust to Bama's different blitzing looks?
Yeah, they did a good job. There's no doubt. I mean, I think, Brad has done a really good job of developing those guys week in and week out. I think our backs have helped. Our tight ends helped in protection. It's not just those 5 guys, but, clearly, the biggest concern we had was their 2 end pass rushers. And you got to give credit to the 2 freshmen. Emery and Will just do an incredible job playing and play out, focusing and refocusing, letting the play go, and coming back to the next play, and just with all-out effort, sustained all-out effort. And so it is 5 guys, but a lot of that emphasis is on O-line awareness, and the guards are helping, the center's helping. But again, I would say overall, just real good awareness up front and helping each other.
Coach, right over here. Just what's the status of Armani Goodwin and just how the running back room is kind of shaking out going into the final quarter of the season?
He's doing well. Came back from a tough injury. I think, when you look at certain games, Coach Wilson has a sense of, who he wants to go with, and he felt like, he had a 1-2 combination that he wanted to stick with, much more physical group in there. But Armani can play physical as well. I think he was more interested in we did so much chipping with those backs. He wanted a bigger presence in there, but we have great confidence and faith in Armani and expect to see him, continue to help us down the road.
Hey, Brian. There's always a lot of focus from us in the media of new offensive concepts and philosophies and that sort of thing. But look at the two teams leading the divisions, and it seems like y'all both place a lot of emphasis on defense and running the ball successfully. Just talk about how the bedrock of winning. Has it changed that much? You think?
Look, I've been doing it a long time, and I know that there are times where prolific offenses certainly get you a lot of wins. This is about not winning. This is about winning championships, and it's my belief that winning championships still you've got to control the line of scrimmage at the end of the day, and so. Controlling the line of scrimmage is stopping the run and running the football effectively and exerting your will. So there has to be a physicality about what you do. I still think you can win games throwing the football, and we'll have to win games, with that kind of offense. I said that earlier in the year. You can't win games throwing the ball for 85 yards. Then we came back and threw it for over 300. But the point I'm making is physicality starts and ends with stopping the run and running the football, and we're doing a better job there.
Brian, with Harold Perkins this year, what have you seen in terms of just how and why he's been able to just handle everything that kind of comes with being a freshman and playing as well as he has this early?
I think, quite honestly, he's got the makeup to do that. He's a mature kid. I was talking to a couple of our coaches about him. He's a bit of a throwback, and a throwback in this sense. Just tell me what I need to do. I don't need all the other things, and I'll figure it out as I go. It's kind of refreshing. He doesn't need to know all the whys, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't give the whys to our guys, and that's part of coaching today. You've got to explain a lot of things. He doesn't need a lot of the whys. Just point me in the right direction. I'll figure it out. And that's Harold Perkins. He knows he's not perfect, but he makes up for a lot of those things with his athletic ability. So, I think that Matt's done a great job of kind of meeting him halfway with some of the things that he's not ready to do, but leaning heavily on some of the things that he has that are, innate traits that can come in and help us win right away. And I think part of it is he's a bit of a throwback in that you don't have to explain everything. Just line up here, do this, and you'll be fine.
Coach, I got two quick ones, if you will. Everybody kind of wants to see behind the curtain. Was there an anecdote, a moment, a picture, or a joke, something somebody shared with you after the game that resonates with you? And then you talked about the moment from January to now. Are you at all surprised at the buy-in? That's the easiest way to describe it. But to have this many different transfers, guys that you didn't coach, commit to a new staff, is that the most striking accomplishment?
Anecdotals, anything that happened after the game. I can't think of anything. I think I was just so happy for our players, and there were a couple of guys that texted me and said they were happy to continue to do that and have people rush the field, and they would take care of what the costs were. I don't know if Scott needs to hear that, or Kelly's here. She probably doesn't want to hear that either. But there's some of those that come along the line. But I think more your second question is probably the question I'd spend time on answering, and I've said this, and that the biggest thing this year is that they have jumped in the deep end and really didn't know how to swim, but they were not going to drown. They were going to find a way to stay above water and kicking and doing whatever is necessary, and that's kind of built this fight in them, this toughness in them, and they haven't been perfect, and certainly we're not there yet, but they have such a pride in LSU. And when we first met, we said, look, we finished last, and that's not the standard, and you have a choice to do something about it. You can continue to be bad, you can be average, You can be good, which everybody in this room is good, or you can be elite. And they've made great choices along the way, so I'm really proud of them.
Coach, is this a trap game, classic trap game here?
I guess. I mean, I guess that's what they call it. I've never bought into that because I think if it's a trap game, you have not done a very good job with your football team. In January and February, for example, January, February, March, we did not train indoors. We trained outdoors. So weather's not going to be a factor. We've been outside in 50-degree, 40-degree weather. They know that, Arkansas is an SEC opponent that beat them last year. Look, your thoughts affect, your actions, right? That affect your physiological response. So we've been working on how we think since day one, and it becomes a trap game if you're not thinking right. And we'll get our guys thinking the right way, and we'll prepare the right way. And this is about a consistency. If they want to be a consistent program, they'll think the right way about this game.
Hey, Coach, what has really allowed your run game, specifically Josh Williams, to flourish these past couple of weeks?
Well, I mean, I think we're opportunistic. We're not – look, we're, I think, about 185 yards a game, which is, the top third in the league. That's where we want to be. We're not where we need to be yet. We're getting better physically. But I think – when you have a multi-dimensional threat like the quarterback, he provides you opportunities in the running game where he stretches the defense out. And when he does that, you have to worry about the quarterback. And, examples where the linebackers have to flow over the top. That creates some seams and opportunities. So it's part of the system in itself. We're not running duo every play downhill, direct snap, and just, knocking people back every time. But we're getting better at that, and I think it's just we're committed to the run. We ran the ball late with efficiency. I just think there's a commitment there is why we've been effective.
You might have just already pretty much answered this, but coming off such an emotional win, in your experience, have you learned there's a best way to get them to think the right way you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I think so you're preparing for these moments in the first week. You handle these by being consistent in everything that you do every single day. And nothing changed last week in the way we prepared, and nothing will change this week. I think if there's if we had a lot of fanfare and sloganisms and changed a lot last week for Alabama, then maybe you worry about it a little bit. But we didn't do anything different last week than we did for Ole Miss or we did for any of the other teams. Our team is just evolving, and they're playing with more of the traits necessary to be a consistent team that plays every snap the right way. So I think I'd be more concerned if we played with so much emotion that we were drained out, but that's how we're going to play. And that's kind of why I went for it. I felt like our football team's going to do this more often. I trusted the way they played, and I trusted that they were going to execute the play that we called. And I trust that they're going to execute next week because they've been consistent over the past 5 months. And I expect them to do the same.
Hey, Coach, winning the SEC West, now that it's truly in sight, is that something that's discussed this week, or is it kind of the Alabama thing of let's not treat this any differently because of something on the outside?
Yeah, so there's, our goal is to graduate champions. So part of this is they want to be champions, and they know that there are steps along the way in this process of getting there. And so this week will be another step towards becoming a champion. And so let's do the things that we need to do. And it starts with today, being early, being on time, making sure that they're intentional about everything we do. So, yeah, the championships are important. That's what they're here for. And getting to class today is what they're here for. So it definitely starts, but, we're not going to walk in with a PowerPoint on the SEC championship race and who's got what and all those things. But, yeah, it's there. It's out there. They know what they're going for.
Hey, Coach, right here. The growth with Jaden has been pretty rapid these last several weeks, but just what kind of role does Joe Sloan play in all of that? I mean, can you speak to just the effect that he specifically has had on Jaden even in the last, month or so?
Yeah, so, I'm with Joe every day, and he's a great communicator. So what are the really good tenets of great teachers and great mentors? He cares about his players. He has great relationships with everyone in that room. They trust him. He provides the information differently for each one as to how they learn. He's knowledgeable about the things that he needs to get across to each one of those quarterbacks. He's demanding, never demeaning. He's all the things necessary to develop quarterbacks, and he's done a great job.
Hey, Brian, would you mind just sharing a thought on Joe Fouché, Greg Brooks, what they've meant this year for you and what it's like for them going back to Fayetteville?
Yeah, so certainly this will be a big thing for them going back to Fayetteville as transfers. But, first and foremost, what was appealing to us as we were putting this back together was to have SEC experience and a connection with the state of Louisiana. And both of those guys filled that box and checked that box for us. So what it means to them is that they play for LSU, and they have such a pride in being from the state of Louisiana. And they want the Golden Boot back. And so as much as they'll have friends and former players that they know, this will be much more about them wanting to win for LSU, because that's why they came back here.
Hey, Coach, two quick ones. What kind of growth have you seen from Mason Taylor throughout his freshman year? And do you have an update on Garrett Dellinger's status for this week?
So there's been growth, physically and mentally. He's a freshman. And as you know, freshmen are, growing physically. And the first big thing is, he's put on over 20 pounds, physically and growing into his body. I think the growth, from a mental standpoint has been the knowledge of the game. He's been really good. I'd be remiss, to not point out the fact that, he's been put in a very difficult position where, a tight end has to do a lot, and we've been very fortunate to have an analyst that has great experience at that position in Terry Malone. I think Terry Malone's an unsung hero for us on our staff, and Terry was with the New Orleans Saints. He's coached the tight end position. He's been an offensive coordinator, and to have an asset like that to assist Coach Denbrock on a day-to-day basis has really helped develop Mason, and Terry's done a really good job. So having that mentor, having that person that's there, he can't coach him, but he's there as a mentor every single day. That's really, really big in his development. Garrett Dellinger looked good. We worked him out yesterday. Much better. I think he's in a great position that he could play this weekend.
Hey, Coach, just right here. Since you guys already have the experience of playing a team like Florida with a big physical quarterback who can run, does having that experience or help you this week against a guy like KJ Jefferson?
Yeah, each one of them has been a little bit different. I was just jotting down. I mean, we've had 5 of the guys that have been real big. Even Jackson Dart was a big kid too. It just seems like every quarterback that we've run into this year has been a big physical quarterback. So, yeah, I mean, again, he's a guy that they want to run, throw. They don't. He's going to be actively involved in the run game. They're not afraid to run him at any time. We've seen him take off at the 5-yard line in the air. I mean, he's a physical player. So, again, we're going to have to do a really good job of containing him.
Coach, going back to Alabama, there were several things the other night, late in the game into overtime, that in the past in the series could have been the, oh no, here we go again moment that deflated the team and deflated the stadium. But each time your team responded to that. I mean, is that kind of speaking to them not blinking and the adversity that they've overcome all year?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that, I get a pulse of a team, and I don't think that there's been a time this year that they haven't felt like they were going to come out victorious in some fashion. And that resolve, that resiliency is kind of baked into them, and they just keep playing. So, again, those are the things that you feel on the sideline when you go up and down. We came out of coverage one time all night, and it was catastrophic. And I went up to the defensive backs. I said, listen, it's going to happen again because we're going to score here. So when we score, stay in coverage. He's going to scramble, stay in coverage. And they did a great job. They responded well, and again, I just think that their resolve has been remarkable.
Coach, something that got kind of overshadowed as the game went on was Jarek Bernard Converse's interception and how pivotal that was. What makes him so versatile playing both corner and safety, obviously, who's back at corner?
He's been invaluable in terms of his ability to do some things for us back at that safety position when we were shorthanded in particular. So just steady, right? Every day you know what you're going to get from him. And look, I mean, he would tell you that there are some things that he'd like to do better, but, our observations, he's a guy that has been rock solid for us and consistent. And, obviously we did a really good job of getting in front of Bryce in that situation, kind of screening him, and he threw under duress, and he was in a great position to make a big play.
Just curious about your working relationship with Matt House. Do you turn him loose, let him go? What has impressed you with his ability each week to come up with a great game plan?
Collaboration. I like to collaborate with the defense during the game. He's throwing at me thoughts. What do you think? Should we go here? Should we pressure? Do you like zone? Should we drop 8? So collaboration. Same thing with Mike. I prefer coordinators that because I'm in the game, that we're having collaboration during the game. Great. All right. Thank you.
Coach Brian Kelly, if there was any question as to enjoying Saturday night and then quickly putting it behind them, getting ready for Arkansas, well, you heard it there. As LSU will travel to Fayetteville this Saturday, taking on the Razorbacks with kickoff just after 11 a.m. We'll take another break. We'll come back, wrap it up. The Brian Kelly press conference delivered by ASAP.
Together, we are partners, setting a new standard for health. Together, we prove that no matter how battle-tested we are, our spirit remains undefeated. Our Lady of the Lake and LSU are creating transformational change and impacting Louisiana with a new standard for healthcare, research, and education. Together, Our Lady of the Lake and LSU are champions for Louisiana. Together, we roar. Learn more at ololrmc.com/LSU.
Welcome back to our podcast here in the bayous of Louisiana. We are looking for the exclusive multiplier games from the lottery with Louisiana's very first $20 scratch-off and a top prize of $500,000. Wait a tick. We found it! Hold on. What's that sound? I think I'll get a closer look. Wait! Oh.
Hey, that's the Explorer! He found the multiplier games!
Thank you, everyone.
Try all 5 multiplier games. You could win up to $500,000. Must be at least 21 to purchase.
And for today's STEM tip. Okay, recycling is important. No one wants plastic in the ocean. Here's a cool way to repurpose a plastic bottle. Build an awesome terrarium. Cut a large plastic bottle in half and fill the base with sand, pebbles, potting soil, and your favorite plant. I chose an African violet. Put the top of the bottle over your base and place it in the sun. Your plant will grow sealed in its own ecosystem. Fun, right? Learn more at She Can STEM. A message from the Ad Council.
In the SEC, we sweat the small stuff. The attention to tradition. The preparation for competition. The smallest things can have the biggest impact on this field and a whole host of other fields. To shine among the brightest stars, you have to sweat the small stuff. Because here, it just means more.
This is the Brian Kelly Press Conference, delivered by ASAP.
All right, Tiger fans, enjoy the rest of the week. Big win for LSU this past Saturday, 32-31 in overtime over Alabama. The Tigers now helping control their own destiny, and they'll get a chance in SEC play. Coming up this Saturday, they take on Arkansas again, kickoff from Fayetteville just after 11 o'clock. Coming up on Thursday, it's the Brian Kelly Show, live from TJ Ribs. We hope you'll join us there at the Ribs location on Acadian here in Baton Rouge. If not, go ahead and tune in on the LSU Sports Radio Network. On Saturday morning, Hunt Palmer, well, he'll be back in the saddle along with Marlon Fabright, Brandon Taylor. They'll bring you LSU Game Day presented by 3 Olives beginning at 9 a.m. I'll hand it over to Gordy Rush, Doug Morrow, myself. We'll bring you the action of Arkansas and LSU from Fayetteville right here along network lines. We thank Gordy Rush for his time. We thank you, as always, for joining us and hope you'll be back next week for another Brian Kelly Press Conference delivered by ASAP.
This has been the Brian Kelly Press Conference, delivered by ASAP, the official mobile ordering partner of LSU Athletics. Download the ASAP app today.